Thanks very much for joining us here on The Real Story. There's almost 1 million voters in Connecticut who are registered as unaffiliated. 1 million. And they're not registered members of any particular party. Now, that's more than 40% of all registered voters in Connecticut. And they all stand to be left out when our presidential primaries are held on the 28th of April because unaffiliated voters are not allowed to vote in a party primary. That's the party's rule.
Former candidate for Governor Griebel says that's a bunch of nonsense, and he's calling on the chairs of both major parties to open up those primaries to unaffiliated voters.
And we're happy to have Mr. Griebel back with us here.
It's a pleasure.
In his current role, working with the Serve America movement.
Right.
Have you heard of that? Please don't tell us. What is this group
Serve
about?
America movement was formed in 2016 in New York now, and among other things, they ran a gubernatorial ticket in 2018. A woman by the name of Stephanie Miner was their gubernatorial candidate, former mayor of Syracuse, former Democrat, and her running mate, lieutenant for lieutenant governor, is a gentleman by the name of Michael Volpe, former Republican, and was a chief elected official of one of the Westchester County towns. They earned enough votes in 2018 to be a minor party in New York, and I don't know how much of you followed in New York, but Governor Cuomo formed a commission last year to, in effect, undermine minor parties by making the number of votes you need to earn to stay on the ballot, and also you actually have to run a candidate in the presidential primary. Sam has challenged that. They filed a lawsuit last Tuesday in federal district court in New York to challenge the First Amendment, challenge this movement as an abridgment of their First Amendment rights. So, and if you follow what's going on in the country, you mentioned the presidential primaries. That is our near-term focus. But the SAM Connecticut Task Force is focused. Our tagline is.
And you're chairing that.
I'm chairing that here. We're talking about what we say unrigging the election system, meaning the structure in terms of excluding voters or giving them less choice is we believe is undermining. And you know, particularly the conversation you had with Senator Martin. You know, I've been in the state roughly 30 years. We haven't addressed, as you both pointed out, the unfunded liability in the better part of 25 to 30 years. We haven't invested in transportation and other infrastructure for the better part of 30 years.
You were with that transportation strategy board.
Right, and we haven't resolved the municipal financing issue that we've got. The pilot keeps getting underfunded and whatnot. And our thesis is that not the only reason, but a primary reason is that the parties are more concerned about the parties than they are about addressing the issues. So we have a three-pronged approach that we're focused on.
I'm calling JR and Nancy right now.
and I'm not the party. We're not. Excuse me. Not trying to do anything. The parties are going to be there in perpetuity. We're looking to open up the system where people have more choice, more voice, and more action going forward. So the other two things I just want to mention is, in addition to advocating for opening up the presidential primaries, we will be advocating for establishing ranked choice voting in the state, which Maine and among others have.
How does that work, ranked choice?
Excuse me, and the other thing we want to talk about is term limits. But go back to ranked choice voting. I'll just give you the example. Maine put it in place in January of 18 for their congressional elections. So there was an issue around their constitution that they were going to have to amend the constitution if you were to do it for state offices. But they had the power to put it in place for the constitutional offices. I forget which of their two districts. There was a Republican incumbent who challenged the ranked choice voting unsuccessfully. He won at 8 o'clock at night, on election night, he won 48% of the vote. The Democratic challenger won 47%. And there were two minor party candidates. So under ranked choice voting, instead of voting for one person, you actually rank your preferences. So you vote for the person you want, but then you also say
number one, candidate number two.
Right. And if a candidate does not get 50% plus one on that first round, 48, 47, you take the person with the lowest number of votes and you go find out who the people who voted for him or her, who did they vote for number two? And in effect, you redistribute those votes. And as a result, the Democrat won.
That the number two choice.
It is. The Democrat won.
This movement is kind of related to your campaign because it's among the theme.
Kind of.
It's among the theme of the two-party system pushing a whole group of voters out.
Right. Well, two things. One, Sam out of New York endorsed our ticket. So I got to meet during Monty Frank, who we ran together as a ticket. We got to know a number of the folks who were in Connecticut. Several of them were very generous to us in their financial support. As I said a minute ago, they endorsed us. And after the 18 elections, they approached us and said, because New York is where they focus their energies, and said, what should we do here in Connecticut? Should we look to try to take a third party? We earned enough votes in 2018 that where we were petitioning candidates, we had to get signatures to be on the ballot. We earned enough votes to have a line on the 2022 gubernatorial ballot without having to get signatures. And so one of the comments was, should we form a third party? And very quickly, you understand as soon as you start talking about third parties, you're right into the right-left spectrum. They want to know, everybody wants to know where you stand on issues. And so our thought was, rather than try to jump down there after a lot of conversation, we thought the best thing to do, if we really want to open up the system, we want to give voters more choice, we have to change the system. So that's why we have focused on the three-pronged strategy.
We've run out of time, but have you heard from J.R. Romano or Nancy Wyman?
Only indirectly.
Indirectly.
Only indirectly.
And
they're saying,
well, I don't think they're going to do it.
no, we like it the way it is.
Exactly. And I get it. I understand. If you're in that situation, that's what you do. That's why we want. And we're trying to build a groundswell to get them to change that, among other things.
Trying to make some noise.
And people want to know more about this.
So thank you. Join samct.org.
Okay. Join
We have the business card.
samct.org. Okay.
Thank you, Oz.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Al. My pleasure.
Good luck. Nice to see you again, Oz.
All right, coming up after the Real Story at 10:30, it's Real People with Stan Simpson.
And we want to get a preview, of course. What's coming up?
Hey,
Stan,
folks,
what do you
good
got?
morning. Hey, an Oz Griebel sighting, huh?
Yeah.
Good to
right
see
here
you,
on
Oz.
set.
Griebel.
Good man.
He's here.
I look forward to seeing you, Stan.
All right, same here, Oz.
He's going to come looking for you.
Come in the studio. Hey, today we follow up on a topic that should be of great interest to folks in Connecticut, the plight of Puerto Rico. Connecticut has the largest concentration of Puerto Ricans in the country. In the last 2 years, the island has been rocked by a devastating hurricane, a political revolution, and now a crippling earthquake. We'll talk to two Connecticut residents, island connected, who will tell us more what Connecticut can do to help. Al, JB, settle in. Real People with Stan Simpson is next.
Incredibly important. Puerto Rico going through so much right now.
story.
How many hits can they take?
I know. I agree. All right. Thank you very much, Stan. Looking forward to that. And don't forget, if you missed something on The Real Story, you can watch it by going online, fox61.com.
Thanks for watching this week's edition of The Real Story. We'll be here for you again next week.
Have a great morning.